Peter Baker, this always ends up being a question of how high up did it go? And above Mike Flynn, there are not too many people. But let me put up a graphic of the Trump campaign officials who contacted Russians, were in contact with Russians after the FBI explicitly warned them of what the nature of those contacts would be. You've got Michael Flynn, who's now pleaded guilty, Jared Kushner, who we know is of interest at least to Bob Mueller, George Papadopoulos, who has pleaded guilty, Jeff Sessions, the sitting attorney general, who I believe has amended his testimony regarding Russia contacts 3 times before Congress, and Donald Trump Jr., who spent at least 2 of the last 7 days testifying before House Intel. Can you talk about whether the White House has any sort of public posture, public position, or any comments or thoughts on background simply about the optics of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 men who were in contact with Russians, either lied about it and got caught and ended up pleading guilty to crimes because of it, or in Sessions' case has changed and amended his testimony before Congress 3 times. I mean, what's the White House's position on these 5 men being in touch with Russians after they were warned by the FBI?
Well, the White House position is that there's nothing necessarily wrong with being in touch with Russia. In fact, the president just happened to talk to Vladimir Putin twice in the last few days. That what's wrong is when people go out and lie about investigators. Those people, as you point out, have already now pleaded guilty. But the point that the White House would say is that they didn't actually get charged with collusion or conspiracy or anything wrong in terms of actually contact with Russia. But you're right. It raises questions why they would be so eager or willing to have these contacts with Russia, given the warning that they had gotten with the FBI, as your reporting has shown. It suggests a certain willingness to defy the institutions that are in charge of basically warning political figures in this country about the potential risks of contacts with adverse foreign powers. Again, nothing wrong with being in touch with Russians in and of themselves. The question is, what do those contacts add up to? Was there any kind of quid pro quo discussed? You know, the idea of lifting sanctions, was that discussed during the campaign, and if so, it was discussed in the context of actions that the Russians were taking, as they themselves basically have shown on behalf of the Trump campaign.